thing about the School of Mines, which I most clearly remember, I suppose, actually, is really that it was a sort of like sense of tradition, because when I went there for my interview, and I was about 31 years old, the guy, dear Donald Andrews, who was the registrar and secretary to and clerk to the governors at the time, had actually been in the job for 50 years, and I just couldn't, as a 31-year-old, comprehend this idea that he and Ken Julian, who was the bursar, had been there for such a long time. And so I suppose when I joined up, I thought to myself, you know, I was joining this place which had this immense tradition, and I suppose my abiding memory of the place is in fact the thought that the school itself was a kind of large family, and that everybody shared this ethos about the school, which was that it was the best in the country and that it was something to be very proud of. And I think this ran all the way through the school, right from the principal down to the cleaners in the school. Everybody shared it. And I suppose the things like, you know, the bottle match, the feeling that people had that they were part of this tribe that had a fierce loyalty to the principals and to Cornwall, to the idea that it was the Cornish School of Mines, and it had a background in terms of a long history, both of suffering in some ways and great riches on the other. And the thing I think also maybe as registrar that I felt very much was that you were at the centre of this huge spider's web that stretched out all over the world, that there were students who would suddenly drop in and you say, where have you come from, so and so, and they say, oh, I've just dropped in from Brazil, or I've just come down, in fact, as one student did, out of the Amazon River, and was regaling me with stories about how he'd woken up and found an anaconda or something in his, trying to get into his bed alongside him, you know. And everything, this was taken as just normal, which to somebody who had not been involved in the mining industry in any way, which was my experience, was absolutely astonishing. And I think one of the funniest memories I have, I think, is of the Porsche. The lottery which the students ran, a raffle for a Porsche. And they went out and they sold the tickets during Rag Week, and at the end of the week the prize was claimed by somebody in Newquay. And when he discovered that the Porsche, which was the main prize, was actually made of chocolate and was the size of a dinky, he decided to take this matter much further, and in fact I think we got a solicitor's letter about it. I went with the president of the Students' Union at the time, a guy called Jack Hawkins, long in my memory, and we made an appointment to go down to Trott and Patel, who were the school solicitors, to actually find out how we stood on this matter. Well, Jack Hawkins had just rolled out of one of the pubs down in Camborne, and really was totally unable to answer any of the questions which was put to him by the solicitor. And John Patel, who I think was the solicitor at the time, said, do you realise, Mr. Hawkins, that you have actually circumvented 57 different parts of the Lottery Act? Jack Hawkins could hardly keep his eyes out of all this time in packs. Oh, really? And the way that we actually got out of this in the end was the students, and it was absolutely amazing, hadn't spelt the word Porsche right on the ticket. And so that we found that the matter was in the end dropped, but that was a very, very amusing incident. Well, the thing was, Nigel became the secretary for the mining club down in Camborne, and he actually had to apply to the magistrates for an extension of the licence. Unfortunately, in the week before, the woman who had actually lived opposite had noticed or come into the mining club and found that all the students were lying on the floor at 5 o'clock in the morning. and had made a complaint to the magistrates, and I'd gone down with Nigel to the magistrates' court, and so the magistrate got Nigel into the witness box and said to him, Mr. Harris, I understand that you are the secretary to the mining club. And he said, yes. He said, can you explain why it was that in fact these students were found drunk in the club at 5 o'clock outside any kind of licensing hours, and why do you think we should give them to you? And he said, I think it was just a bit of a hoot. And I sat there and my face dropped. I thought, it's the last possible hoot, Mr. Harris. The guy said, hoot. Do you think that lying drunk at 5 o'clock in the morning is a hoot? And that was actually, but in the end we managed to get that extension of the licence for a year, I think, with a renewal on it, but it was very hard work. Students were amazingly imaginative, like putting greenhouse paint over all the windows of the shops in Camborne, putting the cars from Cornwall College up on the roof, diverting the traffic down Agar Highway. You know, you never knew what to expect.